Hi everyone, thanks for watching today's video. Today I'm going to talk about blood sugar or blood glucose levels. What does it mean? Where does the blood sugar come from? What does it do in our body? Why is it so important? And how does it go up and down if we have eaten something or we are starving or fasting, etc. So that is the main purpose of the talk today. If you have any questions under the video which are not clear, then please write in the comments and I will try and answer your questions. In the next couple of videos, I'm going to talk about diabetes, different types of diabetes and what they mean. So if the question is about diabetes, then please watch those videos so that might clarify your question already. So first thing to understand where blood sugar comes from. So food we eat contains three main sources of energy. One is carbohydrate or carbs, one is proteins, and one is fats. We're just going to focus on carbs. We ignore proteins and fats for today's talk. The main carbohydrate we eat is starch. Starch is contained in potatoes, bread, rice, etc. etc. It's a very common source of carbohydrate. However, the problem with starch is a very big molecule. If you don't understand what molecule is, what size means, please watch my video below. It will tell you how food is digested in our intestinal tract. Starch is broken down into smaller particles by enzymes in our digestive system. So enzymes come from our stomach, from our pancreas, from our liver, and also from our small intestine, which breaks down bigger particles of food into very simple particles or smaller particles. In the case of starch, the smaller particles are called sugars or simple sugars, and one of them is glucose. So all that is happening above the red line is happening in our digestive system. Once the starch has been broken down into simple sugars, especially glucose, that goes into our blood vessels, which is lying next to our intestine, so gets absorbed. And from the blood vessels or the blood acts like a conveyor belt. So it takes food like carbohydrates, which is glucose, proteins, fats, into different parts of our body. And the reason for doing this, because all these things are required by our muscles, our brain, our heart, our lungs, our kidneys to work normally. So they are basically fuel for the body. So when we drive a car and we're driving from A to Z, no matter how fancy the car is, we need to have fuel in the car. If there is no fuel in the car is not going anywhere. Same thing happens with our body. Most important fuel source in our body, which is a source of energy, which makes our body go, our heart to pump, our brain to think, our kidneys to pass urine, our muscles to move, our bones to work, etc., is by blood sugar. So when the carbs come into the bloodstream as blood glucose, it is transported to different parts of our body. And that is how our body works. Now I'm going to talk about what keeps our blood sugar or blood glucose at a balance. So it does not go too far up, it does not go too far down. And that's where the pancreas comes in. If you don't know what the pancreas is, please watch my link of the video below and it tells you more about the function of the pancreas. One of the vital organs in our body. So like heart, brain, lungs, also liver and pancreas, these are vital organs in our body without which we cannot survive for very long. So how is the blood glucose levels kept at a constant? And the way of doing it is when we eat, food goes in, blood sugar goes up because glucose is coming into our bloodstream. Blood sugar goes up. If we are fasting or we have not eaten for quite some time, the blood sugar will go down. If the blood sugar goes down, then obviously we start getting all the side effects of low blood sugar. If the blood sugar goes up and stays up, does not come down, then we become diabetic. So what keeps it at balance? So when we eat, the blood sugar does not go too far up. When we are not eating, blood sugar does not go too far down. That is where the pancreas comes in. So when we eat, blood sugar goes up, pancreas secretes the hormone called insulin, and that insulin brings the blood sugar back down to a balance. When we are not eating or fasting, the blood sugar goes down. And if the blood sugar goes too far down, we start fainting, start getting fast heartbeat, start sweating, etc. In that case, the pancreas secretes a hormone called glucagon, and that brings our blood sugar up again. Now, some of you might think that how does glucagon increase our blood sugar when we are fasting? Because there is no source of blood sugar coming in. Now, this is what happens. Our body, for emergency rations, like when we drive from A to Z, our petrol tank or our gas tank comes to empty. However, we still have a reserve in our gas tank or petrol tank to take us for another 30, 40, 50 miles until we find a fuel station to fill the car up again. Same thing happens in our body. When our blood sugar is quite good, the body stores our glucose in either liver or the muscles of our body or both in a form of very high storage of glucose or very concentrated glucose called glycogen. And in an emergency, when the body is fasting and the blood sugar goes too far down, glucagon is going to use this glycogen to increase our blood sugar. So it is used as a reserve of fuel in our body. So last thing we are going to discuss today, that how does insulin reduce the blood sugar? How does it decrease the blood sugar? So when we eat, as I mentioned in my previous slide, blood sugar will go up on the scale. The blood sugar will go up. As you might remember, insulin comes in from the pancreas and reduces the blood sugar back to normal. Now, how does it do that? So I've drawn a blood vessel over here, which contains blood glucose or blood sugar. And all these blue spots inside is the glucose floating around in our blood. This is, for example, any organ in our body, like the muscle, brain, heart, kidneys. They're all made out of small bricks or building blocks called cells. Now this is the lifeline, this is the engine of our body. And these cells, if they're not working properly, the body cannot work. The fuel going into these cells is the glucose. So glucose goes into these cells and gives energy to these cells for them to work normally. So all the function that these cells do, like making proteins, making muscles, contracting our heart, making our kidneys to produce urine, all this function is done by these cells. And these cells require fuel to work, energy to work, and that is coming from the blood glucose or blood sugar. And the thing that brings the blood sugar from the blood vessels into the cells is insulin. So when there is high blood sugar, insulin will go up and will push all the blood sugar into the cells. If there is no insulin, like here, there is no insulin working, the blood sugar or blood glucose cannot go into the cells. So it will be totally non-functioning. So these cells will not be able to work for a long time. The reason is because there is no fuel coming into them. And why is there no fuel coming into them is because insulin is not working on these cells. And that is what happens in diabetes, that the insulin stops working on these cells, so the blood sugar cannot come into the cells. And when it cannot come into the cells, it keeps collecting into the blood vessels, and the blood glucose level or the blood sugar level keep going up and up and up because it is not going into the cells. And that will be the topic of discussion in my next video. Thank you for watching this video today, and I hope you found it a bit informative. If there are any questions, write in the comments and I will reply to them the best I can. Remember to subscribe and support our educational channel, and if you like it, then give us a thumbs up as well. Thanks for watching.